You're listening to the Cinemental Podcast.
Shall we begin?
Welcome to Jurassic Park. Welcome back to the Cinemental Podcast, where we discuss mental health themes from cinema, television, and popular culture. I'm Jeffrey Jones, and I'm a filmmaker and professor, and I'm joined, as always, by my brother, Dr. Joshua Jones, who is the velociraptor of doctors. I don't know. I didn't come up with something interesting.
Velocidoctor?
You're a velocidoctor. You're a psychiatric Rex.
Oh,
Yeah, anyway.
God, we totally botched this one.
You're a general and
Yeah.
forensic psychiatrist, which is the interesting part of who you are. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm so glad that we are covering Jurassic Park. This is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
I can remember it was just a great time in life. I was graduating from high school. It was just wonderful. And the best part for me, Jeff, about Jurassic Park is that they let this masterpiece of a movie stand alone, and they didn't try to capitalize and just generate money by making pointless sequel after pointless sequel after pointless sequel.
Right.
And
right.
that was wonderful.
And we're going to talk about the money grab that is all the other Jurassic Parks. We want you to start your week off right with our podcast. We drop a new episode every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch our hottest and spiciest clips and full episodes on YouTube. Josh, we gave up the goods already. Today we're talking about Jurassic Park. In Jurassic Park, a wealthy entrepreneur creates a theme park filled with cloned dinosaurs. Just as soon as you pitch that, it's like, yep, sign me up. I'm in. It's a remote island inviting a group of scientists to preview it before opening, but when the park's security systems fail, plot twist, the dinosaurs break loose, turning the visit into a desperate fight for survival.
Well, Jeff, it's funny. It's funny that you say, as soon as you say that, sign me up, I want to make a movie about it, because that is exactly what happened. Michael Crichton wrote this book in 1990, and before it was finished and published, they bought the movie rights for it. And it was in production.
Had he had a movie adapted before that?
Oh, yeah. Andromeda Strain. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Congo was after, though, right?
No, Coma wasn't his, but yeah.
Congo was after, right?
I think Congo was after. I think Jurassic Park was a hit, and then they adapted.
They were like,
a whole
let's
bunch
make
of
every
movies,
Michael
like
Crichton book.
Congo, The Sphere.
I love The Sphere. The Sphere was so underrated.
And then, of course, ER was his show.
Right. Okay, Josh, but what are the topics we're going to cover in terms of mental health today? Because there's going to be a lot of appreciation for Jurassic Park. We're going to talk about some of the filmmaking. But what can we expect in terms of mental health?
Jeff, a lot of people are going to say Jurassic Park. What can they possibly talk about in terms of mental health for this popcorn movie? And the answer is actually a lot.
Yeah, there's
so
quite a bit.
We're going to talk about narcissism and grandiosity. We're going to talk about childhood trauma and resilience. Ooh. We're going to delve into scientific and medical ethics and the difference between the two. And then most importantly, Jurassic Park is the ultimate sci-fi parable about how to manage, not control, but manage anxiety.
Oh, interesting. So I can't wait to talk about anxiety, because I'm curious. I'm curious how you're going to tie that in. Okay, for those of you who haven't seen it, go back and watch the original. It's the only one worth watching. But before we get started, Josh, we actually have a sponsor this week. So this episode is brought to you by, and I'm excited because I really want to go. You and I should go opening day to this. But this episode is brought to you by the Live Virus Experience, where science meets spectacle in a completely controlled, totally safe environment. Step inside this beautifully designed habitat showcasing real living viruses as they behave in nature. No risk, no exposure, just pure discovery. You get to see the most deadly viruses that humanity has ever known. Walk through immersive exhibits like Patient Zero, which so you can watch an outbreak unfold in real time. Experience the invisible world like never before. It's educational, it's cutting edge, it's perfectly contained. Live Virus Park, see it up close without ever bringing it home.
It sounds great, Jeff. My only question for you, are they going to have the COVID coaster up and running on opening day?
They better have the COVID coaster.
Yeah. Nothing can go wrong. Nothing could go wrong.
No, nothing could possibly go wrong with that. Okay, so for those who haven't seen Jurassic Park, just stop now, go watch it. In Jurassic Park, billionaire John Hammond invites a group of scientists, including paleontologist Alan Grant, who who cares who played him, Ellie Sattler, and mathematician Ian Malcolm, to preview his revolutionary theme park on a remote island where dinosaurs have been brought back to life through genetic engineering. While touring the park with Hammond's grandchildren, that's a good idea, bring your grandkids, for the test, that's foolproof, a disgruntled employee, and also Jerry Seinfeld's neighbor. A disgruntled employee shuts down the security systems to steal embryos, disabling fences and power and allowing the dinosaurs to escape, leading to a series of deadly encounters, including a Tyrannosaurus Rex attack and velociraptors hunting the survivors. As the group becomes separated and struggles to regroup and restore power, ultimately they're fighting their way through the park's collapsing infrastructure to reach. They escape. Josh, all of the topics that you talked about were great, but here's where I want to start today, okay?
Sure.
I want to start with the Jeff Goldblum quote. It didn't require any discipline to obtain it. And he's talking about the science behind the cloning. It didn't require any discipline to obtain it. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourself, so you didn't take any responsibility for it. You stood on the shoulders of giants, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it. You slapped it on a lunchbox, and you sell it. Your scientists were, and this is the line I love. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop and figure out if they should. And this is where I think we can just now talk about ethics and the ethics of discovery. I think that most scientists stand on each other's shoulders and push to the next level. And there isn't a lot of thought about whether they should do this. And I'm just curious, like, how do we find that line? You know, and I'll give you a good example in real life to start off. Madame Curie and the discoverer of radium, they create the X-ray, and as a way to test the X-ray without really knowing the power of radium and X-rays, Madame Curie would put her hand in front of the X-ray to make sure that it was working, and eventually her arm fell off because she was pumping it so full of radioactive rays. They pushed science before they really knew what it was. But we have the X-ray. How do we find that line? How do we find that ethical line?
Jeff, you're gonna break a few eggs. No, I'm kidding. This is a fabulous topic. So what we're talking about here is impulse control versus ethical responsibility. And science, as you pointed out, it's a weird beast. Absolutely. All scientists stand on the shoulder of others. You don't go back to first principles when you're trying to come up with the next big thing and say, you know what, I'm going to start back with inventing fire and work my way forward. Of course, you start with where scientific progress is right now. I think another dangerous topic that we're talking about right now is the scientific invention of artificial intelligence.
Sure.
And we are just hurtling pell-mell into an area that we poorly understand. Right. And one of the interesting things about humans is that we think we understand more than we do. Almost all the time. And scientists really struggle with this throughout history. You look at Oppenheimer, and you can look at some of the struggles, if you watch that movie, about how the team that was trying to invent the atomic bomb really grappled with the ethical problems of it, but they still pushed forward. And so I think you see at some point scientific advance doesn't happen without danger, doesn't happen without risk. We talk about mitigating it some, but still that's how the vast majority of great human scientific breakthroughs happened, with a lot of risk and some damage.
Yeah, and it's kind of a throwaway line in the movie Oppenheimer, but it was a very real thing that the scientists predicted that there was a possibility blowing up the nuke would ignite the atmosphere and end the world. Yes. It was a possibility. In the movie, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of funny. Like, oh, maybe it's fine. No, they really wrestled with that. And they still pushed forward. And that's the tough part, because I don't think you can say you can't take the risk. I think you have to take the risk. But again, like, how do you draw sort of the ethical line? And maybe you draw it at, Are you trying to monetize it faster than somebody else? And everybody needs to slow down. But I don't know that that's the way to do it either. I'm glad that we pushed forward faster than the Germans to create the nuclear bomb.
Sure.
I'm very glad we got to it first, without necessarily thinking about the ramifications. It's still a blight on American history that we dropped 2 nukes on Japan, and that cannot be, made light of or brushed over. I wish that we hadn't done that. I wish that nukes had never been, used against people. But I'm certainly glad that we developed the technology for the Germans, and I'm certainly glad we got to it before the Russians. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one, but you also highlight something in there that is also endemic in the scientific community, is that if you don't make the discovery, somebody else is going to, right? Because we're all standing on other people's shoulders, almost everybody has access to the same information. And so somebody's going to get there. And so one of the questions that comes up in scientific ethics is getting there before somebody else, and the fact that, someone else is going to get there eventually, is that enough to jump over the ethical or moral hurdle of should this be done?
Right.
And I think most of the time the answer is yes. Now,
I agree.
There is a big difference. There is a big difference between scientific ethics and medical ethics. And I want to point that out to folks, that I think in some ways my profession as part of the scientific community is a little bit more ethical. Doctors are constrained, and rightfully so, by the Hippocratic Oath, which is commonly understood as the first tenet being first, do no harm. So that's always the thing that physicians are supposed to think about.
That's the thing, Josh. Supposed to. And I don't know. This isn't a fully formed thing, and I hate playing devil's advocate, but let me play devil's advocate just for a second. Is it possible that you feel that way because you're in it? Because I have a hard time believing that if somebody's like, I'm really close to this discovery, and this procedure will be therefore named after me if I get there first, that they're not subject to the same very human motivation of being the first and maybe skip over some of the more ethical steps.
Well, you didn't let me finish my thought, but that's okay, because you completed my thought for me. Is that even though we have
It
this
sounded
kind
like
of
it sounded like you took a pause there. It sounded like an interjection moment for Jeff. I didn't
Jeff,
interrupt you mid-sentence.
I have to breathe sometimes. But as you rightly point out, the pressures are so great that even though the Hippocratic Oath exists, and even though we strive to obtain it, it's just that it's striving to it, and we are still human, and doctors who are also researchers are trying to push forward. They are under pressures to compete for the next grant. They are under pressures to produce for their venture capitalist backed company. So all those pressures are still there, but we at least have the ethical code that says first, do no harm. It's squidgier in other scientific communities.
Is squidgier? Sorry. Were you done? I know you just stopped for a breath there. Had you completed your thought? Can I ask a question now?
And other scientific communities don't. Yes, I'm finished, Jeff. Go ahead.
Is squidgy a real word?
Yeah. I believe that language is descriptive, not prescriptive, unless you make an error, and then it's prescriptive.
All right, let me get down to brass tacks on this, Josh. They bring dinosaurs into the world through, obviously, cloning. Let's not talk about the issues involved with cloning. Let's just say that you're in charge of whether or not bringing dinosaurs back into the world can happen or not.
Yep.
Do you say yes to it?
From a pure scientific discovery perspective, I say yes.
So then do you have any issues with what happened in Jurassic Park? Are you more Jeff Goldblum, or are you more Professor Hammond?
Ooh, boy, that is a really good question. So Hammond, he was just, he wanted this done. He was come hell or high water, we're doing dinosaurs. Right. And Ian Malcolm, Jeff Goldblum's character, was more like, think about all the ramifications of this, and know that even if you can't predict everything that's going to go wrong, know that something's going to go wrong. Between those two, where am I at? I'm in the Ian Malcolm camp. Things are going to go wrong. Things go wrong, and things go wrong with things that we've done 100,000 times before.
Right.
Now, in this question that you posed me, though, does that necessarily mean stop? It doesn't. But it does mean don't be so arrogant, like Hammond and his team was, that you know everything and that you've planned for everything, right? Because that's the entire conceit of the movie.
And I don't know if that humility is possible. I don't know.
What do you mean?
I don't know if that's in our I don't know if that's in our nature. You and I are walking around as guys who didn't bring back dinosaurs. But if you do bring back dinosaurs, you got a big swinging dick between your legs. And you're walking around being like, yeah, I'm the motherfucker who brought back dinosaurs. You know, like, there's no humility possible there. And knowing that now that you've done it, other people are going to be close behind, and you've got that lack of humility now, and people are on your heels, of course you're going to do what Hammond did. Of course you're going to do it. You want to get it out to the public as soon as possible. You want to be first. I just don't know that it is in our nature to not create Jurassic Park if we can.
Jeff, that is a really good point. You said it correctly. You and I are sitting here as two guys who did not invent dinosaurs. I mean, we have not done something. I mean, other than creating the world's greatest podcast, we have not done anything that is so amazing that we are world renowned for it. And I think back. I think about some of our techno oligarchs that we have right now.
Sure.
And a lot of what they've done was based on luck. They won't say that, but they were in the right place at the right time.
Sure.
And I think that,
little Malcolm Gladwell.
What's that?
Little Malcolm Gladwell there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I think Gladwell's premise would say that none of these guys are that special. Sure, they're smart. Sure, they take risks and anything like that. But it also could have been one of 100,000 different people who was the head of Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
But you get there and you think that you were predestined or preordained to have done this, and your narrative that you tell yourself about this has to fit where you see yourself in the place in the earth.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody wants to admit that they got lucky. Like everybody. Like, I love the analogy, and this is often used to talk about privilege. But they'll use the analogy of starting the game of Monopoly with different amounts of money and starting certain people like with property in advance. And inevitably by the end of the game, the people who won will talk about their strategy and not the fact that they were given twice the amount of money to start.
Fascinating.
I think that is human nature. And I believe that nature is impossible to change. Behavior can change, but human nature, I don't think it's really possible to change it, without a lot of effort. But if you're creating dinosaurs, there's not a single person that's like, you know what? Got to work on that humility. I gotta do some self-reflection.
Sure, you're right. They're not, and yet, that's why this movie stands out, because the parable is that there is a fall coming for those that don't have humility, for those that have this narcissistic grandiosity, and for those who, like John Hammond, flew too close to the sun and didn't have the humility to, because there were many times in the movie in which a little humility and backing off from just pounding forward would have saved the day.
Right.
Or would have at least stopped stuff.
And this is why we, unfortunately, but I think you'll agree with me on this, maybe you won't, and we're sort of the wrong guys to maybe have this part of the debate. This is why the rest of us need to step in and set the guardrails.
I agree with that.
So these things then need to be heavily regulated to protect the rest of us, or even protect the trailblazers from the unethical steps that might be taken.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. And in real life, we saw an example of this in the last few weeks or so in the groundbreaking jury verdict against some of the social media companies, saying that these social media feeds were designed to be addictive.
Right.
And even though legislative regulation hasn't come out to stop this, in our heretofore still functioning system of checks and balances, a jury has now come out and said, no, this is dangerous. We need to put some boundaries around it.
All right, Josh, let's talk a little bit more about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that.
So
Yeah.
in the famous T-Rex scene where the T-Rex first escapes and it's attacking the cars, we see quite a few different reactions. The blood-sucking lawyer immediately runs. The kids freeze. Jeff Goldblum wants to protect them. And Sam Neill is thinking clearly. He's able to say, don't move. He's able to process it. These are all the fight or flight responses. Are these hardwired within us, or can everybody else have trained themselves to be more like the Sam Neill character?
Yeah, and the answer to both your questions, are they hardwired and can you train yourself to be more like Sam Neill, is an emphatic yes.
Right.
So,
okay.
yeah, this is a great example of something that we talk about all the time. Your stress response. Fight or flight. We know now that freeze is in there, fawn is in there.
Right.
Lead is one of them as well, and this is as you point out, great example. The kids freeze. You'd kind of expect them to have something like that. I mean, they're kids; they haven't been through this. But the Sam Neill character, as you point out, whether it's ingrained or whether he's trained to it, thinks more clearly than others.
Right.
And you can train yourself. So whatever your response to having a T-Rex, having a T-Rex attack you, having the initial water in your cup shake because of his footsteps coming near you, that's going to happen. And you can't necessarily predict how you're going to respond to a particular situation until you experience it, or until you simulate it enough that you understand some of the physiologic cues, racing heartbeat, fast breathing, sweating, hair on the back of your neck standing up, etc., to tip you off that I'm about to have a stress response. Then you can go into some pre-recorded and rehearsed and practiced ways to think about what to do next.
Right, because Sam Neill didn't have any experience before this of getting attacked by a T-Rex.
You know what, Jeff? Good point. Probably not in real life, but I mean, he's a paleontologist. Maybe he has thought about it, right?
Well,
you don't get
100%. And I didn't say that to say like, oh, he should have had a fight or flight response. What I'm
No.
saying is the difference between him and everybody else in that is he knew more about dinosaurs. And he wasn't a child because, one of the kids did know a lot about dinosaurs, but he was a child.
Was a kid, yeah.
But Sam Neill had more information and could thereby access that information. Let me ask you this, though, because this has always been a question for me about the fight or flight response, and it's a great place to talk about it. Fight or flight seems like what happens to you when the stress becomes overwhelming. Because you and I get stressed on a daily basis, we don't necessarily have a fight or flight response. Would you say that Sam Neill didn't even have a fight or flight response? Everybody else did, but he just was stressed in that situation, but was able to think clearly and therefore did not have a fight, flight, freeze, fawn response?
God, Jeff, that is actually a great point. So there is a threshold level at which your inherent
Lizard
coping
brain,
mechanisms are overwhelmed.
Right.
And that's at different points for different people. I think you nailed it on the head. Everybody probably has the point where they are overwhelmed. Training can change your threshold, or knowledge can change your threshold, or it can just be inherent in who you are to have a different stress threshold. But you're exactly right. Until that meter kind of gets filled up and overwhelmed, you're thinking relatively rationally.
Right.
And when it does tip over, that's when the lizard brain takes over and you have the fight, flight, fawn response.
Right.
With training, you can change where that threshold is.
Yeah, and arguably
That's very well said, Jeff.
Arguably the bravest person in that scene is Jeff Goldblum, because he doesn't know shit, and he still is like, "Get him out of the car! I'm going to do the thing you just did." It's like he doesn't know anything. He picked up one tiny piece of information that he that he misconstrued, and now he's like, I'm a hero.
Well, the Jeff
I'm Jeff Goldblum, bitch.
But so Ian Malcolm's character is one of the most fascinating characters in all of fiction.
Oh,
I
he
think.
was great.
And
only
what's
Jeff
so-
Goldblum could play him.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I got two thoughts on that. I guess I'll go with the side quest first.
Great.
Our mom used to say that her criteria for who should win the Academy Award is if you can't ever see anybody else ever playing that character again.
Which I thought was honestly, I still use that to this day.
I still use that criterion. And the Ian Malcolm character is Jeff Goldblum, could only be Jeff Goldblum, and nobody else should ever try to inhabit that character ever.
Agreed. Yeah.
But going back to the Ian Malcolm character, it is so funny because in the movie, the John Hammond character is held up as the narcissist, right? Because he wanted to press through and do this come hell or high water. I will posit that Ian Malcolm is just as arrogant.
Oh, sure.
Just as confident.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say as narcissistic because he has not lost the empathy that John Hammond has lost, that he's going to do this no matter who gets hurt or what the dangers are.
Yeah.
But he's
maybe.
just as confident as John Hammond, if not more.
I mean, he's a little narcissistic. The whole thing with I'm always looking for my next ex-wife. He's not necessarily treating people great. He doesn't have any problem hitting on Laura Dern right in front of her man. He's just a rock star chaositician.
Yeah, that's you have an excellent point.
Josh, I'm gonna change gears here for a second, and I want to talk about something that happens in cinema quite a bit, and it's when a character is so evil or unlikable that it ruins your ability to enjoy that actor in other things.
Sure.
I hated Wayne Knight after this movie. And when I watched him in Seinfeld, I would be like, you betrayed everyone in Jurassic Park, you bastard. And that for me was one of the times. And it is tricky because when we talk about this was a power that they couldn't possibly control, maybe they could have had they not had a saboteur. Would Jurassic Park have broken down had they not had a saboteur?
Sure, but you're basically asking the question of, would it not have broken down if humans were humans? Right? Of course you're going to have a saboteur. Of course you're going to have corporate espionage. Of course you are.
No, I'm with you. I think it probably would have broken down eventually. And I often think about this in modern day. With all these self-driving cars, I could just imagine a world where somebody hacks them all simultaneously and just programs them to go as fast as they can. How do we not have the humility that self-driving cars are not going to dramatically fail?
Sure.
And to me, that's the same sort of no, we can control it. It's all good. What fail-safes are in there to truly prevent somebody from, hacking my Toyota Prius and just driving it off a cliff?
Well, Jeff, if you want to talk about the Hammond character in real life, Elon Musk has come out on record about this, that he is totally cool with a lot of people dying from self-driving cars because eventually they'll be safe enough that they will save lives, because people because they're safer than people driving. So, I mean, that's a real life example.
Okay, so let's talk about. I could talk about Jeff Goldblum till I'm blue in the face. But there is something really interesting about chaos theory, and I don't believe for a second that paleontologists hadn't learned about chaos theory. It's just, they're like, oh no, I've never heard of chaos theory. Please explain it to the audience. But there's something interesting about just the concept of chaos, and if you're someone who embraces the idea that chaos is always going to exist. Humans want to be creatures of habit. Humans want answers. This can lead to a lot of anxiety in people not being able to control their environment. Correct?
Yes. And I think that this is one of the surprisingly deep lessons from Jurassic Park.
Right.
Is how much you try to control things. And as much as you think you have things ordered as a way to control the anxiety that is within all of us, how much that can and will inevitably fail and lead to more anxiety. Jeff, I think one of the things that separates humans from the rest of the animal kingdom is that we evolved highly developed organizational skills.
Right.
My wife more than any of us, for sure. But
my wife, except for tech, it's really funny. She's so organized, but then in terms of tech, she's just a complete disaster. And I'm really organized in terms of tech, but then we're so perfectly aligned. Her and I are literally yin and yang. It's very funny.
My kids will text us at random places that are my adult children will text us from random places and say, "Oh, this is such a great event. I'm having such a great time at this concert." And then the next text will be, "But Mom would be appalled at how the lines are organized."
That's great. That's great.
But back to humans developing organizations. So
Yeah.
I think that's why we really have dominated the rest of the animal kingdom, is our ability to organize stuff.
Right.
But inherent with that ability is the drive to organize.
Right.
I think that's anxiety.
Sure,
I think
the drive to
that's-
keep things
something-
organized. Yeah.
Something's amiss. Something's
Right.
wrong. So if we think about all human behavior on a spectrum, one
Right.
end to the other end, that organization and that resistance to being okay with a little bit of anxiety drives some people to try to be over-organized.
Right.
I will raise my hand as one of those
Sure.
people to try to control things to a point that you think, if I just figure out a system for this, I won't have to worry about anxiety in the future.
Right.
And that's what they tried to do with Jurassic Park.
Okay.
They thought, yes, we're bringing dinosaurs back into the world. It's dangerous, but we're going to solve all the problems by
Right.
having all these systems in place, and then we won't have to worry about a thing. And it all falls apart.
Yeah, it's very interesting, the conversation that Hammond has with Laura Dern towards, I think, the middle of the movie. And you could call it the midpoint of the film, where he says, "I know all the mistakes I made. It's going to be better next time." And she's like, "Dude, you are missing the point here. The point is that there should never be a next time for having all this control." And I do think, Josh, and maybe this is massively oversimplified, but I do think that there is a little bit of a difference between women and men when it comes to the need to organize and the need to control. My wife is certainly the person who is like, I need to know exactly what we're doing as we leave the house. I need to have, I need to know. I'm much more of the, like, I'll get outside and I'll figure it out. I don't have any problem with what's the plan? I was like, I don't have one right now. There's a lot of variables. I'll figure it out. As the variables come in, I'll just deal with them and adapt. At least that's a difference between me and my wife. I won't go so far as to say that that's a biologic difference between men and women. But there kind of are two types of people in that regard, where people are, sort of more willing to embrace the chaos and be fine in the chaos. And then people who, need things to be more organized in order to feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, I will say I don't think it is necessarily, from my observations, I don't think it is necessarily biologically inherent in men and women.
Sure.
I think we've sociologically decided that some behaviors are feminine or masculine, and I think we've got lots of debate over whether that's accurate.
Sure.
I will say that in my marriage, Vicky is by far the more organized one, but once we get out in the world, if things happen, she's like, okay, we'll be fine. I want to know what's
That's
the plan.
true. That's actually very true. Yeah,
I
Vicky's a
wanna know what's the plan.
badass when all of a
Super
sudden
badass.
shit goes wrong. Like, yeah, I think
Well, look, they're
more than anybody, Vicky might be the person I want with me if shit goes awry.
Well, Jeff, what I was going to say is, for all the mistakes they made in Jurassic Park, the number one was not having my wife as their chief operating officer. None of this shit would have happened.
Yeah.
Right? None of it would have happened.
Yeah.
But back to the lesson here from Jurassic Park for people who are wrestling with anxiety, is that you cannot control for all the variables. It is not possible.
Right.
So trying to control for all the variables is paradoxically only going to increase your anxiety.
Right.
Because not only are you going to have the anxiety that you came into the situation with, but the fact that you are now not controlling for all those things is going to heighten the anxiety. So Jurassic Park is, for those people who suffer with anxiety, a good lesson in how to manage and sit with the uncertainty as opposed to trying to control it.
I mean, when it comes to dinosaurs, we really should probably do our best to control every element. Well, we're about to be attacked by a velociraptor. Hold on. Let me sit here and think about that for a minute.
You're such an asshole. You are such an asshole. You know exactly the point I am trying to make.
I do know the point, and I don't know that what I just said lessens the point, because I think it's absolutely a great point, because we're talking about what to do in normal life, where when you feel yourself getting anxious, sit with that. I mean, we talk about this in meditation all the time, where it's not about not feeling the thing. It's about feeling it, acknowledging it, saying hi to it even, and then just trying to let it go. Hello. I'm dead serious.
Hello.
And one of my favorite quotes, everyone should meditate 20 minutes a day, unless you don't have the time, in which case you should meditate for an hour. And I just love that, because it's a reminder that, like, if you're feeling super anxious, slow down, acknowledge your anxiety, realize that probably 80% of the things that are on your plate are things that don't even need to be done. So I didn't mean to lessen the lesson there, but I just think it's funny when applying it to Jurassic Park, where it's like, if we're gonna have a dinosaur park, I want to have a little bit of control. We might want to try and control every element of that. At least have a massive fail-safe,
But Jeff, I think the point as applied to Jurassic Park is not don't have fences. I think the lesson as applied to Jurassic Park is don't think you have it all figured out, to the point that you don't then have the flexibility or the humility to say, "Oh, we messed this up. Let's go back to first principles and take a step back and figure this out." As opposed to, "I'm sure it's going to be fine. Send the grandkids out in the SUV."
Right.
How much did he hate his grandkids?
I know.
Holy crap!
And it's like, I'm going to sit back here in this very well air conditioned and very safe control room while you guys, go dodge the dinosaurs. What a great guy.
There are so many great parts to talk about in Jurassic Park. I mean, we haven't even talked about the fact that Samuel L. Jackson is there and didn't
with one of the best
day.
With one of the best lines ever. Hold on to your butts. I love that line. He's great. He's great in everything he does. He was great. I loved the Velociraptor Hunter. And I love it when faced with death. His last line was "clever girl." Such an appreciation. Talk about like not having the anxiety, but just being like, I know what this thing is. I'm fully aware of what it is. I don't have any, and they're attacking the fences. I'm fully aware that they're trying their best to escape. He dealt with his anxiety in what I thought was a pretty healthy way. He might have been the most healthy guy on the whole thing, then faced with death, clever girl. It's just great.
Just an
Love
appreciation.
That character.
Well, I mean, he was a hunter, right? And I think that trope, at least that character in fiction, is appreciative when they get out hunted, which is what happened here.
I think that's actually universally true. I do think that, there's a lot of just fucking guys who want to shoot things that go out and hunt, but I do think that that desire to hunt is that desire to also be a little bit hunted. It is the mano a mano nature of it.
Jeff, I got a couple questions for you. So
lay it on
this
me.
This is a good point, a good time to ask them, because Jurassic Park changed some things for us. First of all, nobody knew what a velociraptor was before this. I mean, the paleontologists did, but we grew up liking dinosaurs. It was never one of the the big five that we thought about. We thought about T-Rexes and
T-Rexes, Triceratops, Stegosaurus.
Stegosaurus, Pteranodons, not velociraptors. And yet, all of a sudden, since then, velociraptors like a badass dinosaur. So that changed stuff. But what I want to ask you about for this movie is, are there movies that just fundamentally changed the history of filmmaking? And was this one?
Yeah, no, it was. And it's funny because it wasn't necessarily because of the writing. It wasn't because of the directing. It wasn't because of, anything else. And it's a very interesting story. And I would point everybody towards movies from the 80s. There was a documentary about movies from the 80s, and they covered Jurassic Park, and they talk about this. There was a moment where they were going to do all the dinosaurs as stop motion.
Okay.
Because we didn't know that CGI was there yet. And in fact, there was a guy who was working on CGI, and everybody in the studio was telling him, don't do it. We're not going to use that. It's not there yet. And one day they strategically walked one of the producers by his office and had it up on the screen. And the producer walked in and was like, what is that? And so they kind of like went around, their bosses to show off what was possible with CGI. And so CGI was used. And it was one of the first major motion pictures that used CGI. And so in that regard, it was so visually cool that it changed filmmaking. But it also took it being a great movie for people to pay attention to it.
Sure.
Like when we think about something like Avatar, Avatar was an absolute spectacle. But I don't think that the story was there enough that people cared about, the second movie. The second movie still did obviously very, very well, but it didn't break the records that Avatar did. I certainly didn't see it. And now each one, it has less and less of an audience. So the story has to still be great to sort of show off where we are technologically with filmmaking. But yeah, the Jurassic Park was the perfect mix of a great story, great director, and a new sort of filmmaking element that had never been seen before. And yeah, it did then change cinema. Everybody wanted to do that sort of CGI.
You're trying to tell me that Avatar's quest for unobtainium isn't groundbreaking?
I mean, that had to have been a placeholder, and they just forgot to change the name of it.
So back to how Jurassic Park changed filmmaking. Do you remember what it was like seeing it for the first time?
I do. I mean, I was so blown away. I remember I saw it 5 times that summer because I was like 13 or something. I think I was 13. I think it came out in 93. But yeah, I mean, I was a teenager. I mean, that was the first time I really understood the power of cinema.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, Josh, for me, was in the music.
Oh, sure.
That
Yeah,
music, that
that
score was so beyond incredible. It was just something I'd never heard before. And, you talk about that opening, not the opening scene, but like when they first visit the island and the helicopter comes over and that, magnificent vista and a da-da-da-da-da. I mean, just as a kid, I'm like, whoa, oh my God, what am I even seeing? And I want that feeling still today. Like, I love a really good composition because I think it takes me back to when I was a kid and saw Jurassic Park. That's one of the reasons why I loved Interstellar so much. The music in Interstellar, Hans Zimmer's use of the organs, was just something I'd never heard before. And that soundtrack is so incredibly amazing. I mean, every bit of that composition is incredible.
I remember seeing it for the first time and going, that's an actual dinosaur.
Yeah.
As opposed to, the stop. I had grown up with stop motion movies
Sure.
or the stop motion Tauntaun.
RoboCop 2, I remember was it that, some stop
yeah.
motion and
Yep, the relatively great Sinbad movies that and Clash of the Titans.
Clash of the Titans
used
had
a
some,
lot
yeah.
of stop motion. So another question though, another question that I wanted to ask you about was I've heard that they made some sequels.
They did make some sequels.
And pretty recently.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
So, Josh, I watched, so that you didn't have to, I watched Jurassic World Afterbirth to sort of juxtapose.
That's not what it's called. That's not what it's called.
Well, if the first movie was a cinematic baby, this was a placenta at best. Like, this was not another baby. This was the Afterbirth. But I watched it so that you didn't have to, Josh. And what was really crazy to me in watching this movie and juxtaposing the two, same guy wrote both.
Really?
Jurassic Park and Jurassic World Rebirth were written by the same guy. And Spielberg asked him to come back and write the new one. And he did. And Josh, it is so flawed as a screenplay, and it really bugged me as to why. And here's the best I can imagine. One, it's been 30 years, and I don't know if this guy has done a ton since then. He was given a blueprint because of the book. And this is always what you have to wonder about when things are adapted. What was the writer or what was, the previous writer? And we saw this with Game of Thrones, where the last couple of seasons of Game of Thrones were pretty terrible because they didn't have their blueprint anymore, and so that will oftentimes happen where it's like, who do we credit the greatness of a movie to? Is it the director, Steven Spielberg, or was it the writer? Or was it the guy who wrote the book? And Spielberg's not going to make a poorly written movie. There's been very few Spielberg movies that are poorly written, even though he doesn't write the screenplay, because he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't allow characters to tell, not show. But this was a pretty poor screenplay, and I've got a few reasons. And as always, I don't love to shit on movies, but because this is about Jurassic Park, I'm not shitting on Jurassic Park. I'm shitting on something else, so I feel like I'm covered. This was, again, that type of movie that just had the exposition dumped, and it's the showing versus telling. And it drives me nuts that people are still doing this and wondering why things fall flat. One of the plot lines for this movie, Josh, the main plot line, was they were going to Dinosaur Island because they needed to stab 3 dinosaurs in the heart to get their blood so they could make a heart disease medication. Okay, so that was their impetus to going to the island. And they literally have a line, Josh, that is, like your mom died of. And Scarlett's like, yeah, no, she did die. And that's supposed to be enough for us to then want to understand that she's on this journey. Mahershala Ali, as part of it, they just kind of drop the line. It's like, well, how are you doing with the loss of your child? And he's like, well, not great,
I'm sorry to laugh.
Luckily, they happen upon this dad and his kids out in the middle of nowhere, and they save the kids. Immediately bring them on their mission to the island. But,
as one does.
But Mahershala Ali is at least in the position to be able to save the children, right? Yeah, no, they get completely separated, and they meet at the end of the movie. So Mahershala Ali has we don't revisit that part of the plot line at all. And then, Josh, this was the one where at the very beginning of the movie, I was like, I want to turn this off, but I won't because I want to talk about it for the podcast. Part of the plot line for this movie was that we have gotten bored of dinosaurs.
Wow.
And nobody's interested in dinosaurs anymore. And there's even a scene at the beginning of the movie where a guy is in a car and a brontosaurus has escaped from the museum, and it is walking through New York, and there's a guy in a car going like, ugh, move already. Guys, dinosaurs are dead, and we're so fascinated by them. If there were living dinosaurs, our excitement for them wouldn't wane. Even dead, they're one of the most interesting things in the world. We're fascinated, and we'll always be fascinated about them.
I'm going to disagree with you on this. I mean, I hear you, and when you told me about this plot point, I was like, that's a little too on the nose, because the actual plot point is we've gotten bored of these crappy dinosaur movies. I actually think that plot point is right on the nose. We become inured to things so quickly as humans. We just start to take them as normal. And it's an adaptive, evolutionarily driven thing that happens to us, that this would for sure happen if dinosaurs came back. They would be really exciting for about 5 years, maybe less, and then we would be like, oh, another thing to stop traffic.
If dinosaurs aren't interesting, then why did you make the fucking movie?
I didn't make the movie.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is the people who made the movie, it's like, oh, nobody's interested in dinosaurs anymore. Then why am I? Well, because we have a heart medication we're trying to get. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, I hear you.
I care about that. Let me juxtapose that, Josh, with Jurassic Park. Sam Neill's character, let's talk about Mahershala Ali. Like, oh, you lost a child, right? That must be highly emotional. We're going to care about that. Sam Neill's character in Jurassic Park, we see his relationship with children. in one of the very first scenes, he scares the shit out of a kid talking about velociraptors. And then Laura Dern is like, yeah, maybe not ready for kids yet. And he's like, they're smelly, they're gross, blah, blah, blah. And then in the end, we see the change, and he's holding the kids after having spent the entire movie saving them. Unlike Mahershala Ali, who spends no time with the children saving them. I don't understand why lazy, poor writing seems more prevalent than ever. And I say that, but like a lot of the Academy Award movies this year were pretty well written. They were pretty great. But I'm like, you have an opportunity with these Jurassic World movies to do even better than they're doing. Like it doesn't need to be only spectacle. And I really think that they would make even more money if we got back to, let's talk about first principles, which is just tell a great story. And Jurassic Park was a great story about trying to control the uncontrollable. And you talked about like velociraptors, making velociraptors scary. The reason why they were so scary is because they were so cunning. It wasn't because they were the biggest. It wasn't because they were the loudest. It was because they were the most cunning. And then cut to fucking Jurassic World and Chris Pratt holding up his hand, and that's supposed to stop a velociraptor. And you've just nutted the whole franchise in one moment where now nothing is dangerous anymore. Nothing is scary.
Yeah.
That's
a really good point.
It just boggles my mind. And later he's riding a velociraptor. Like, come on, man.
I know.
Come on.
Well, look, I mean, you made a point about the bringing back the writer from the first movie. That's partially true. He did have the writing credit, but Michael Crichton was on that movie as a writing advisor the entire way.
Right.
And I think that makes a big difference. That makes a big difference.
It does. And you'll see this a lot where you'll see in the credits, like, from one of the producers of The Matrix, you know, and as if that's supposed to mean that this is going to be a great movie. You don't know if that was the good producer or not. You know, like, you have no idea if that guy actually made the movie better in any way. One of my favorite jokes, Josh, that I ever wrote, you know, for myself was I was doing the trailer. I was doing the trailer for some movie I'd made, and the copy was from the makers of 2 of the following 3 film franchises: Instagrammy, Appleberry Zoo, and The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, first of all,
it was like, it's not inaccurate. It's not inaccurate.
It's not inaccurate. No? I miss Appleberry Zoo.
Appleberry Zoo is great.
So great.
Yeah.
I don't think I had a point about people getting used to AI like they would get used to dinosaurs. I think we're past that now. No, here's my point. Here's my point about AI, or about people getting used to stuff so quickly.
Sure.
It was like mid-March 2024. ChatGPT had been released in end of 2023, and somebody actually said to me out loud, they formed these words, "Oh, ChatGPT is so slow."
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
How do you have that thought?
Yeah. Louis C.K., who I do not respect in any way, but he had a great joke about somebody getting on the intercom on a flight and being like, "Oh, unfortunately, we have internet, but it's not working right now." And someone's like, "Ugh." And Louis C.K., you didn't even know about the internet 20 seconds ago, and now you're mad that it's gone. You know, like, what?
Yeah. That is how quickly we get used to stuff.
Yeah, no, look, that's fair. It's not believable to me. And again, it's like, if we don't care about dinosaurs, why are we making this movie? If you want to tell a movie about people trying to end heart disease, then tell that movie. But if you want to tell a movie about dinosaurs, there needs to be that, sort of ethical dilemma, that ethical quandary of, why are we making dinosaurs? Like, I didn't have a problem with, one of the parts of Jurassic World being like, hey, they're trying this again. And that's interesting, because I think we would. And what are the new ways that we fail? Great. I have no issues with that. I had an issue with them just nerfing the velociraptors, which was the dumbest idea ever. But we repeat our mistakes. So that movie had the chance to tell a really interesting story about, repeating our mistakes. In Rebirth, a lot of the dinosaurs had died because the climate conditions weren't good.
Sure.
Great. That's a really good way to get them all back to sort of one island. But then, just making it a random movie about, needing to end heart disease without showing us just give me a character standing over someone dying of heart disease. Just give me that. Just show me that. Show me why it tore up Scarlett Johansson so much. And then now, give me that they're racing to discover this so she can heal somebody she loves. I often say this to my students. No one cares about saving the world. Audiences do not care about saving the world. They care about saving people who are important to the character.
Interesting.
In Independence Day, it's a great example. Like Will Smith has a love of his life, Jeff Goldblum has a love of his life. They're trying to save their wives. We care about people who are trying to save one person. That's what we tune in for because it matters, and we can see that it matters. And it's such a common mistake that we make in screenwriting. Well, we're going to save the world. That's drama, right? Not really. Josh, anything else you want to talk about in terms of mental health or any screenwriting questions you have?
No, Jeff, I think we've really done Jurassic Park well as it should be. It is an amazing movie. It was definitely a formative movie for both of us and many of the people of our generation. If you haven't seen it, you should see it, even if you've seen some of the other. Yeah, even if you've seen some of the other Jurassic Park sequels, just pretend they don't exist. And watch this again, and then think about it being a really nice parable about how you cannot control anxiety. You can only hope to manage it well.
Very well said, Josh. Thank you for that recap. So obviously, Josh, the premise of Jurassic Park was they bring back dinosaurs. They resurrected dinosaurs. Do you have a list of things that you think should never be resurrected?
Why, Jeff, thank you for asking, because in this week's edition of top 5 lists that no one's asked for, I do have a top 5 list of things that should not be resurrected.
I thought you might. I thought you might, Josh.
I will say that this is a humorous list, so obviously some of the really big things that shouldn't be resurrected aren't on here.
Sure,
but this, I think you'll agree that
like
this
Hitler
is
we shouldn't resurrect
like Hitler, like slavery. I mean, stuff two white dudes shouldn't talk about.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, but if you're ready, I've got a list for you.
Lay it on me. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I don't.
Hitler and slavery.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Don't forget this. Okay.
Okay. So the number 5. Give me the number 5 thing that should not be resurrected.
Jeff, it's the mullet. The first iteration of the mullet. Now, I know that there's some modern mullets trying to make a comeback, which I would say no. But the original 1980s business in the front, party in the back, was a level of commitment to hair-based duality that most modern foreheads, like ours, simply aren't prepared for.
Sure, I'm with you with the mullet. However, I actually think mullets right now look really good on women. But I know what you mean by that old school mullet. Give me number 4.
Jeff, number 4, also a hair-based topic, is we should never try to resurrect frosted tips.
Okay.
Unless you are currently the singer of a 1999 boy band or a celebrity chef who specializes in Flavor Town.
Sure.
The sun-kissed by a highlighter look has reached its natural conclusion, and allow it to remain dead, encrusted in amber for all eternity.
I have no idea why my wife married me or got together with me in the first place, but I had frosted tips when we first met. And for some reason, she still took me seriously. All right, number 3.
Jeff, number 3, let's not bring this back, is dial-up internet sounds.
Sure.
While they can be nostalgic for about 3 seconds, nobody actually wants to wait 4 minutes for a single low-resolution photo to load while the computer screams like a fax machine having a midlife crisis.
I've thought about bringing that back as my ringtone for my cell phone. Right? That would be a great idea. Okay, number 3. Number 2.
Number 2, Jeff, is the low-rise jeans era.
Okay.
Specifically the mid-2000s version where pockets were purely decorative and sitting down was a high-stakes logistical challenge. Some things are better left to the history books and to belts.
What about the low-rise jean tramp stamp combo?
Oh, that's like that would be the sequel. That would be the sequel to that movie.
And a mullet. All at the same one. All three.
While trying to get onto the internet.
And a frosted tip mullet while trying to get onto the internet. All right, what's your number one thing, Josh, that should never be resurrected?
But, Jeff, none of them can top this. This is called aspic. And I don't think people know that term, so I've
never heard of it.
It is Jell-O filled with other stuff. So it's a mid 20th century obsession with putting ham, peas, hard-boiled eggs, shredded carrots inside a translucent mold of gelatin, often tomato-flavored. It's the only food that looks like it's judging you while it wobbles.
Why did people ever think that was a good idea?
I don't know, and that's why we should never resurrect it.
Yeah, I remember. You were a green Jell-O, a carrot guy, for a while. I at least understood the assignment and added sugar to sugar and put marshmallows, in my Jell-O. But yeah, no, that is straight up dick nasty. Yeah, those are good, Josh.
You didn't quite understand the assignment. I didn't like it. I liked how easy it was to make on Thanksgiving Day, and I could make it and get out of the way.
Sure. Josh, fun list.
So, Jeff, Jurassic Park was a really good science fiction movie. It was based somewhat in science as well. What about movies that are really, really scientifically accurate?
Thank you, Josh, for that intro. So there's 5 films, Josh, that I think are the top 5 most scientifically accurate sci-fi movies of all time, and that's this week's top 5 list. These are movies where the science is pretty close to bulletproof, or they were so prophetic that I decided to include them. Jurassic Park was great. I don't have any issue suspending my disbelief for film.
Sure.
Learning more and more about dinosaurs. They couldn't have breathed our air. They would have immediately died. The whole cloning process was ridiculous. The frog DNA part was ridiculous. There's a lot of ways that Jurassic Park was debunked over the years. I don't care. I loved it, But these are movies that are pretty close to not being able to be debunked because the science was so good.
Okay.
So that's my top 5 list.
Okay, Jeff. Number 5.
So number 5, we're going to go with Gattaca. The hook of this world is where your DNA determines your future. And honestly, we're not that far off now. We can control certain elements of our DNA, and we can choose. We can choose the sex of babies. There are things that we can choose. And we unfortunately do still live in a world where there is certain privilege given to certain sorts of traits. What makes this believable, what makes the movie so believable, was how sort of quiet and systemic it was. There's no big evil villain. There's just us that, slowly decides what matters and what doesn't. The science really felt real, but it's the social consequences, I thought, that really made it hit. So my number 5 is Gattaca.
Interesting fact about Gattaca, the name of the movie Gattaca is made up of just 4 letters. The 4 letters that correspond with the 4 bases in DNA.
Wow. I did not know that. That's really cool.
True fact. Okay. Number 4.
Number 4, we're going to go with a comedy. We're going to go with Don't Look Up. The hook is a planet-killing comet heading towards Earth, and nobody takes it seriously. Not a lot of science in this science fiction movie. I still consider it science fiction because it has to do with an asteroid. But what's so incredibly believable about it is our reaction to it.
Sure.
People argue, we politicize it, we turn it into content, and we ignore it until it's too late. We give ourselves over to these Elon Musk types, who don't have any humility about being able to control it. It's real because we have already seen how hard it is to get people to agree on obvious problems. People would think it's a hoax. The social commentary for that movie was spot on. So that's why, for me, it's my number 4.
All right. Number 3.
So let's go with Her. The hook of this movie is a guy falls in love with AI. We are here already.
Yep.
This movie is not that old, and we thought, like, this will never happen. People are marrying their AI. Yeah, the reason it works is the technology, and the technology isn't the focus, it's the loneliness. And again, you might see a theme where it's not necessarily the science, but it's the human component. But the movie understands that if you give people something that listens, that adapts, and validates them, they will attach to it. And that is happening. And the science was pretty great. It mirrored the things that are happening in AI. To me, it's pretty science fiction bulletproof.
And number 2.
Number 2, we're going to go with the movie Arrival.
Oh, good movie.
Great movie. And what I loved about it, Josh, it's first contact with aliens, but instead of action, instead of the violence, instead of them being invaders, it's about communication. And what makes it accurate is the process that the scientists go through to understand the aliens. And the fear. The underlying fear of something that we don't know. But real scientists don't jump to conclusions. They test, they observe, they try and understand before reacting. And that movie felt so real because it respects how difficult it would actually be to communicate with something completely unknown. And that was the focus, and it was really, really well done.
Wonderful choice. I can't wait to hear what your number 1 scientifically accurate sci-fi movie is.
Yeah, number 1 is Contagion. Oh. This movie was so accurate, it's almost uncomfortable. The hook is simple. Virus spreads through everyday human contact, and everything spirals from there. What makes it feel real is that nothing's exaggerated. People panic, misinformation spreads, systems get overwhelmed, and solutions take time. We saw this all play out, obviously, with COVID. But in this, it wasn't the virus that was the most scary. It was how predictable human behavior is, once it hits, and how we sort of, devolve. Really did predict how we would act with COVID. Fun fact about Contagion, there's a friend of mine who works in the CDC, and there was a scene in Contagion that people had an issue with, which was that they didn't wear masks when they were handling deadly diseases. And my friend was like, no, that's actually kind of accurate. We don't always mask up. And I just thought that was amazing. But yeah, Contagion, when I watched it, I was like, man, this is real. Like, this is what would really, truly happen. So yeah, that's my top 5 list of the most scientifically accurate sci-fi movies of all time.
That is excellent. Yeah. I did not see Contagion. I was going to.
Sure.
And then COVID hit, and now I'm not going to ever see it.
No reason to. I mean, we lived it. Yeah. We literally lived it. All right, Josh, that's my top 5 list. You had a nice top 5 list as well. Super fun movie to cover. I think we could do another hour just geeking out about how much we loved Jurassic Park.
Okay, I'm ready.
But we did a really good job of covering the mental health stuff. Thanks as always for watching or listening to Cinemental and our coverage of Jurassic Park. Cinemental is produced by me, Jeff Jones, and edited by David Haverty. If you like this episode, please subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also watch clips of Cinemental on YouTube, where we would love to hear what you would like us to cover next. You can also watch my companion series, The One Thing, where I take a deeper dive into screenwriting, both available on the Large and in Charge channel on YouTube. You can find Dr. Jones on Google+, or by searching for him in the 1989 Coweeman Junior High yearbook. This has been a Large and in Charge production in association with PMC Media. For Josh Jones, I am Jeff Jones, and we will see you next week.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.